On January 28, 1986, Challenger soared for just 73 seconds before disaster struck. In an instant, a routine mission became one of space exploration's darkest days. The tragedy left a stunned nation with endless questions, secrets, and chilling truths. What went wrong? How could warnings have been ignored? Prepare yourself as we reveal the haunting details that still shake the world. The birth of NASA's Space Shuttle program. During the 1960s, as NASA raced to land astronauts on the moon, they also envisioned a reusable spacecraft that could launch into space and return like an airplane. Politicians were anxious about the high costs of single-use rockets, so the concept of a spaceplane, one that could be reused repeatedly, sparked great enthusiasm. It seemed like an efficient solution compared to expensive, disposable rockets. While ideas for reusable spaceplanes had floated around since the 1950s, they mostly remained as sketches and early calculations. But in 1972, NASA officially launched a project that would eventually bring the Space Shuttle to life. The plan was to build 4 shuttles, each named after historic exploration ships. When the first shuttle, Columbia, was unveiled, it was celebrated as a revolutionary step forward. The shuttle was expected to cut launch costs dramatically, with promises of weekly missions. Yet, some experts were skeptical about these ambitious expectations. The first flight would be led by experienced astronaut John Young, with newcomer Bob Crippen as his pilot. Columbia took off from Cape Canaveral with Young and Crippen aboard, marking a historic moment. It was the first time a brand new spacecraft was launched with a crew. John Young was instrumental in persuading NASA to skip a high-risk maneuver on this maiden flight, where the shuttle would flip and try to return to the launch site if something went wrong. In April 1981, Columbia took its historic first journey into space, marking the end of nearly 6 years without an American in orbit. Columbia's early missions, including this first flight and the next 3, focused on testing the shuttle's performance in space. During this initial mission, the crew encountered issues like loose thermal tiles on the engine pod. These tiles were crucial for the shuttle's protection during re-entry, and tile problems would become a frequent concern. Although Columbia landed safely, it did so with significant tile damage and a buckled undercarriage door. Engineers devised a new way to attach the tiles and felt optimistic about resolving these issues. It took NASA 103 days to prepare Columbia for its second flight, this time sporting a white-painted external fuel tank, a modification that saved 272 kilograms for the mission. Commanded by Joe Engle with Dick Truly as pilot, this mission marked the second of the 4 test flights, each featuring a 2-man crew. Over the next few years, additional shuttles, Challenger, Discovery, and Atlantis, joined the fleet, taking on new missions, primarily launching commercial satellites into space. While NASA had ambitious plans for weekly launches, the actual pace was much slower. Each shuttle could transport up to 3 standard-sized communication satellites. As the missions progressed, some encountered challenges when faulty boosters left satellites stranded in low Earth orbit. This led to innovative rescue missions and introduced the shuttle's unique capability to retrieve satellites. Although refurbishment between flights took longer than expected, NASA remained committed to increasing mission frequency. The Challenger crew. In 1986, the Space Shuttle Challenger prepared for its 10th mission, staffed by an exceptional team of astronauts, each bringing a unique skill set to the ambitious goals ahead. The mission aimed to deploy the TDRS-B satellite and conduct various scientific experiments, relying on the crew's combined expertise. Commander Francis Dick Scobie led this accomplished team with a reputation for decisive and steady leadership. Known for his dedication and courage, Scobie's life and career became forever linked to this ill-fated mission. He was born on May 19, 1939, in Clay Elam, Washington, and grew up with a fascination for aviation. His journey took him to the Air Force, where he logged over 7,000 flight hours as a skilled fighter and test pilot. He later earned a degree in aerospace engineering from the University of Arizona, further solidifying his path to NASA. The mission's pilot, Michael J. Smith, was a decorated Navy veteran from Beaufort, North Carolina. Born on April 30, 1945, Smith had a distinguished military career, graduating from the United States Naval Academy before serving in Vietnam. As a combat pilot, he flew multiple missions and took part in the intense Operation Linebacker, proving his resilience and skill. Smith earned a degree in naval science and a master's in aeronautical engineering, adding to his technical knowledge. Selected as an astronaut in 1986, he quickly joined NASA's elite, valued for his steady performance under pressure. Mission specialist Judith Resnick was another pivotal member of the crew. Renowned for her intelligence and expertise, she played a crucial role in the Challenger mission, bringing extensive knowledge and experience to the team. Judith Resnick, born April 5, 1949, in Akron, Ohio, was a pioneer in her field. As one of NASA's first female astronauts, she joined the program in 1978 with a PhD in electrical engineering from the University of Maryland. Resnick had already built a strong foundation in science, having flown on a previous shuttle mission, STS-41D. During that mission, she managed the shuttle's robotic arm and executed various scientific experiments, deploying 3 satellites and conducting biomedical research. Her technical skills and dedication made her an invaluable part of the Challenger crew. Ellison S. Onizuka, born on June 24, 1946, in Kealakekua, Hawaii, also brought his unique talents to the team. As the first Asian American astronaut, Onizuka represented a blend of scientific skill and rich cultural heritage. With a PhD in aerospace engineering from the University of Colorado, his journey to NASA was driven by an early passion for space. He served as an aerospace flight test engineer with the Air Force before joining NASA in 1978, earning respect for his expertise and dedication. Mission specialist Ronald E. McNair, born in 1950, was another extraordinary individual. He grew up in a disadvantaged African American community, facing numerous obstacles that only strengthened his determination. McNair achieved a BS in physics from North Carolina A&T State University and a PhD in laser physics from MIT by age 26. His groundbreaking work in laser physics at Hughes Research Laboratory earned him recognition, eventually leading him to NASA's Space Shuttle program. His journey was marked by resilience and a passion for science. Sharon Krista McAuliffe, a high school social studies teacher from Concord, New Hampshire, was a key figure in NASA's Teacher in Space program. Selected from over 11,000 applicants, she was chosen to inspire students across the nation as the first civilian to fly aboard a shuttle. President Ronald Reagan announced her as the first citizen passenger in our space program, making her a national symbol of hope and inspiration. She prepared to teach lessons from space, hoping to encourage students to pursue careers in science and technology. Her role on the Challenger mission marked a historic milestone, blending education and space exploration in an unprecedented way. NASA's Teacher in Space program aimed to bridge space exploration with the everyday classroom, allowing students to share in the wonders of space firsthand. Krista McAuliffe, chosen after a rigorous selection process involving medical tests, interviews, and specialized training at the Johnson Space Center, was set to deliver 2 captivating lessons from space on topics like magnetism and Newton's laws. Her unique role as an educator astronaut would bring science alive for students everywhere, inspiring future generations of scientists and explorers. Krista McAuliffe's journey into space was not only a historic milestone, but also a heartfelt mission to ignite curiosity in young minds. Her passion for teaching made her an ideal candidate, with an ability to translate the complex wonders of space into engaging lessons that would resonate with students across the nation. Joining McAuliffe on the Challenger was Greg Jarvis, born on August 24, 1944, in Detroit, Michigan. Reflecting on his opportunity, Jarvis proudly stated, "I'm very proud to be part of the program that NASA and Hughes have put together, and I'm glad to be representing Hughes Aircraft." A distinguished engineer and payload specialist, Jarvis graduated from Mohawk Central High School in 1962. He went on to earn a degree in electrical engineering from the State University of New York at Buffalo in 1967, followed by a master's from Northeastern University in 1969. After completing his studies, Jarvis served as a captain in the United States Air Force until 1973. He then joined Hughes Aircraft as an engineer, where he contributed his skills to space technology. In 1984, Jarvis was chosen as a payload specialist for Challenger's STS-51L mission, tasked with conducting fluid experiments in weightlessness. Tragically, the mission was cut short, preventing him from fulfilling his mission. After his passing, Jarvis's alma mater honored his legacy by renaming the East Engineering Building as Jarvis Hall and installing a memorial sculpture on campus. Additionally, a nearby hydroelectric power plant was named the Gregory B. Jarvis Power Project in tribute, ensuring his memory and dedication to space exploration would endure. The Challenger disaster. The Challenger mission's preparation was a colossal undertaking, spanning 37 intense weeks of training and countless adjustments. Initially scheduled for earlier in January, the launch faced multiple reschedulings. NASA had to consider critical factors like potential landing risks, the Spartan satellite deployment, and optimal timing to view Halley's Comet. After several changes, the launch was ultimately set for January 22, 1986. But as the days drew closer, a series of delays struck. January brought an unusually bitter cold to Florida, with temperatures plunging below freezing, a condition no shuttle had ever launched in. Gene Thomas, Challenger's launch director, reflected on the challenge. Even though we knew there was a risk of catastrophic failure, NASA was determined to increase the number of launches. Concern over the freezing temperatures led NASA to push the launch from the 26th to the 27th. The morning of January 27th saw Challenger nearly take off. By 12:30 a.m., the crew was already preparing, and by 8:07 a.m., they were strapped in and ready to go. But an hour later, a door ajar signal disrupted the plans. The issue stemmed from an outer hatch problem, and the ground crew struggled for 2 hours, contending with frozen screws using whatever tools they had: screwdrivers, drills, even a hacksaw. By the time they resolved the issue, the launch window had already closed, marking yet another delay in the mission that fatefully set the stage for the following day's tragic events. Bob Saik, Kennedy's shuttle chief, quipped, "It felt more like a Three Stooges episode than a shuttle launch." He added, "It just wasn't our day. We'll regroup and aim for Tuesday morning." Finally, on January 28, 1986, at 11:30 a.m., Challenger launched from Kennedy Space Center's Launch Complex 39B. The crew went through their usual routine, arriving at the pad, suiting up, strapping in, and performing checks. Ice inspections were critical on that freezing morning to ensure everything was safe. If any issues had been found, they would have delayed liftoff yet again. With the countdown complete, the engines and solid rocket boosters ignited, propelling Challenger skyward. The commentator's voice rang out, and liftoff of the Challenger. For a few brief moments, the shuttle ascended into the heavens, its engines roaring to life, followed by the solid rocket boosters lighting up at 6.6 seconds. At 13 seconds, Challenger began its roll maneuver, and Mission Control in Houston confirmed it. The main engines throttled down to 94% power at 24 seconds, then to 65% at 42 seconds to ease through maximum aerodynamic pressure, throttling back to full power at 59 seconds. The crew's last communication at 65 seconds confirmed everything was operating smoothly, with systems in order. But then, in an instant, tragedy struck. At 73 seconds, Challenger was gone, lost from Mission Control's screens. Silence filled the room as the realization set in, a moment of shock, disbelief, and profound loss. The crew had no indication of the disaster unfolding around them. The live broadcast provided the first sign of something terribly wrong. Radar began tracking multiple objects, and moments later, Houston's flight dynamics officer confirmed the unthinkable. The shuttle had exploded. 30 seconds afterward, the range safety officer sent a destruct signal to the solid rocket boosters, ending all hope of recovery. Thick smoke trailed from the boosters, a sight that no one wanted to see. Challenger's path veered off course, subjecting the crew to immense G-forces. Commander Scobie and Pilot Smith, unaware of the impending catastrophe, noted the strange trajectory and the smoke their last observations caught on the shuttle's recorder. Tragically, an O-ring failure caused a chain reaction just 73 seconds into the flight, leading to a massive explosion that obliterated the external tank and solid rocket boosters. The disaster unfolded in seconds, leaving the crew no chance for survival. In the minutes that followed, the public remained hopeful. Mission Control, still uncertain of the disaster's scale, continued to assure viewers that everything was proceeding normally, even 105 seconds into the flight. Public Affairs Officer Stephen A. Nesbitt continued tracking Challenger on radar, unaware the shuttle had already broken apart. The crew's emergency packs activated as the shuttle disintegrated, capturing one final chilling word from pilot Michael J. Smith. Although the main engines still fired briefly, control was lost. At an altitude of about 15 kilometers, Challenger shattered completely, marking an instant and tragic end for the 7 crew members. There was no chance of escape or intervention, leaving both the crew and those on the ground helpless against the tragedy. Honoring the Challenger crew. The day following the Challenger tragedy, President Reagan delivered a heartfelt tribute to the fallen crew, honoring their bravery and sacrifice. In his speech, he quoted the poet-pilot John Gillespie Magee Jr., saying, "We will never forget them, nor the last time we saw them this morning, as they prepared for their journey and waved goodbye and slipped the surly bonds of earth to touch the face of God." To uncover the cause of the disaster, Reagan established a special investigative team, the Rogers Commission, headed by former Secretary of State William P. Rogers. The commission aimed to examine both the technical flaws and the decision-making process that led to the ill-fated launch. Their investigation produced a comprehensive report, complete with recommendations to improve NASA's safety protocols. After implementing these changes, NASA resumed shuttle flights in September 1988, ending a 32-month hiatus. For the first 7 missions following the disaster, launches were conducted from Pad 39B as updates were made to Pad 39A. During the recovery efforts, officials withheld specific details regarding the crew's condition, respecting the family's wishes for privacy. Reports indicated that the shuttle's cabin had remained largely intact, with personal items and research materials still present when it was found. The New York Times reported that the remains of the crew were so damaged they were nearly unrecognizable. Identification took place at Patrick Air Force Base Hospital, led by the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology, about 24 miles from Cape Canaveral. In a final tribute, the Challenger crew's remains were interred at Arlington National Cemetery, an enduring symbol of their courage and dedication. In Arlington National Cemetery, the 7 Challenger astronauts are honored with a shared memorial in Section 46, Grave 1129, while Commander Francis R. Dick Scobie and pilot Michael J. Smith have individual resting places. This central memorial holds a special place, engraved with the poignant words of John Gillespie Magee Jr.'s poem, High Flight. Sunward, I've climbed and joined the tumbling mirth of sun-split clouds, and done 100 things you have not dreamed of. Across the nation, heartfelt tributes to the Challenger crew have emerged over the years. In Montpelier, Vermont, shortly after the disaster, Danny Roselli, son of a local granite business owner, installed a modest black granite memorial off the roadside, a quiet homage to the lost astronauts. In 1986, the Challenger astronauts' families founded the Challenger Center for Space Science and Education. The first of its kind opened in Houston in 1988, and since then, the network of Challenger Learning Centers has used space-inspired activities to immerse students in STEM subjects. The Challenger experience, celebrated for its hands-on approach, has reached over 5.5 million students worldwide, providing young minds with unique opportunities to explore space and science. One of the most touching tributes came from Ellison Onizuka's daughter, Janelle. Just before her father's final mission, she gave him a soccer ball signed by her high school teammates at Clear Lake High near Johnson Space Center. In 2016, astronaut R. Shane Kimbrough, inspired by Onizuka's story, took this same ball with him to the International Space Station, where it floated in zero gravity for 173 days, a symbol of dreams realized beyond Earth. When Kimbrough returned, he presented the ball to the Onizuka family, who, in turn, donated it to Clear Lake High School. Now proudly displayed, it serves as an enduring reminder of Onizuka's legacy and a source of inspiration for future generations. After the Challenger disaster, one of the items recovered was Ellison Onizuka's treasured soccer ball, signed by his daughter's high school soccer team. The ball was returned to Onizuka's family, who decided to donate it back to her school, where it became a cherished keepsake on display for 30 years. In the wake of the tragedy, NASA discontinued the Teacher in Space program in 1990. However, the memory of those who lost their lives lives on through various tributes. In 2015, the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex introduced Forever Remembered, an exhibit created with the astronauts' families to honor the crews of the Challenger and Columbia shuttles. This moving display includes personal belongings of the astronauts and recovered pieces of the Challenger and Columbia, offering a place of reflection and remembrance. Nearby, the Space Mirror Memorial honors the Challenger crew with their names etched on its gleaming surface. Each year, NASA holds a Day of Remembrance in January, a solemn occasion to honor the astronauts who perished in the Challenger, Apollo 1, and Columbia missions. This day serves as a time to reflect on their legacy, the changes implemented to enhance space exploration safety, and the lasting impact of these courageous individuals on NASA's mission. Ignored warnings. New details from interviews and testimonies have shed light on the decision-making surrounding the Challenger disaster, bringing new clarity to a story long thought understood. Alan MacDonald, who represented Morton Thiokol, the company responsible for the solid-fuel rocket boosters, was present that day, overseeing their work. He recalls vividly, "After leaving the Launch Control Center, he fought against intense wind that whipped sand into his eyes, making it hard even to reach his car." Later, while visiting a friend, MacDonald received an urgent call from his colleague Bob Ebling, who relayed troubling news from a meteorologist in Orlando. The forecaster predicted that the wind conditions that had delayed the launch could be followed by a cold front, with temperatures expected to drop as low as 18 degrees Fahrenheit by morning. Concerned, Alan feared how such cold could affect the O-ring seals on the boosters. Engineers back in Utah were equally alarmed and asked him to gather precise weather data from NASA. He agreed, but insisted that engineers should present the findings. He wanted a thorough briefing, complete with data, known risks, and a clear recommendation for a minimum safe launch temperature. MacDonald set up a teleconference, bringing together engineers from Utah, the Marshall Space Flight Center in Alabama, and NASA's team in Cape Canaveral. After careful analysis, all the engineers agreed. The shuttle should not launch below 53 degrees Fahrenheit due to the O-ring's sensitivity to cold. Morton Thiokol's vice president of engineering, Bob Lund, echoed this recommendation, firmly stating that launching below 53 degrees Fahrenheit would be unwise. Alan felt sure this warning would prompt a postponement. "I was shocked because I thought that was a slam dunk. They would accept that and just postpone the launch." But to his astonishment, top officials began to question the recommendation, and, in a surprising turn, they overruled it, giving NASA the green light to launch Challenger in a much colder 38 degrees Fahrenheit weather. Engineers voiced their objections, but concerns about losing government contracts overshadowed their protests. When NASA requested a written confirmation of approval, Alan refused to sign. "I would not sign that recommendation. I felt we were taking risks we should not take. It'll have to come from the plant if it comes from anyone, but not from me." O-rings weren't the only concern. During the teleconference, MacDonald warned that wind gusts reached 70 knots and ice covered the shuttle. NASA officials pressed Thiokol for more information, responding, "Al, you've raised concerns that may not be your responsibility, but we'll take them as advice. But where's the confirmation from your superiors?" The following day, the ice team scrambled to knock icicles off the shuttle, using an infrared gun to take temperature readings which were logged in NASA's records. A later review revealed that the temperature around the solid rocket booster dipped below 28 degrees Fahrenheit, much colder than the ambient 31 degrees Fahrenheit, just above freezing. This area had been shaded from the sun and exposed to harsh winds, pushing the shuttle past its designed limits. A chilling new discovery. Hidden in the depths of a long-forgotten NASA archive, a newly uncovered document has surfaced, casting a shadow over the tragic Challenger disaster. The file, marked with urgent red warning stripes, offers chilling insights into the days leading up to the fateful launch. The details within paint a haunting picture of concealed motives and unsettling events that, if revealed earlier, could have altered the course of history. The document discloses that, mere weeks before launch, a secretive faction within NASA conducted an unauthorized experiment intended to mimic the intense conditions the shuttle would face. The results were alarming, showing vulnerabilities that could jeopardize the mission. However, instead of informing the broader team, those involved buried the findings. Key figures launched a covert effort to keep this information from both top officials and the public, ensuring that no alarm was raised. One part of the file describes a tense, closed-door meeting among NASA's top brass. Under intense pressure to meet the launch deadline, the decision was made to proceed, even with lingering doubts. The file further reveals a haunting incident. A whistleblower reportedly attempted to alert the team to the risks, but they were swiftly dismissed and silenced. In those final hours, the stage was set, with secrecy and hidden agendas overshadowing safety. The events that followed left the world in shock and grief, forever haunted by what might have been avoided. New revelations impact on families. The families of the Challenger crew, who have carried decades of grief, are now facing a wave of renewed pain as recent revelations emerge about the fateful mission. For years, they found some solace in the official account, but this new information is forcing them to confront a far more troubling reality. The fresh details surrounding January 28, 1986, have reopened old wounds, exposing that critical warnings from engineers and other officials may have been ignored. June Scobie Rogers, widow of Commander Francis R. Scobie, shared her anguish in a recent interview, saying, "It's as though we were kept in the dark. Knowing that a warning could have prevented this tragedy is beyond painful." The family of Krista McAuliffe, the teacher chosen as the first civilian in space, has also been shattered by the realization that vital safety steps were not taken. The knowledge that she may have been placed in harm's way due to negligence has been a heavy burden for them. These revelations have also sent shockwaves through the public, reigniting anger and sorrow for the Challenger disaster. This new evidence has stirred controversy, as many media outlets appear hesitant to fully explore the recently disclosed facts and eyewitness accounts. The impact of these findings reshapes our collective memory of the tragedy, leaving the world once again questioning what might have been prevented. NASA's safety overhaul. The Challenger tragedy on January 28, 1986, deeply impacted both NASA and the public's view of space exploration. It was a profound setback, shaking America's faith in NASA's program and leading to a significant reevaluation of safety practices. In response, NASA took decisive action to prevent such a tragedy from happening again. The agency overhauled its safety protocols, implementing stricter guidelines and more reliable systems. Rigorous testing became the norm, ensuring that all components met stringent standards. Training for astronauts and engineers also intensified, including realistic emergency simulations to better prepare them for unexpected challenges. Communication within NASA and with contractors was strengthened, creating clear channels and improving the exchange of critical information. Transparency with the public and the media became a priority, as NASA committed to providing regular updates and maintaining stronger oversight to ensure accountability across the board. While the Challenger disaster was a heartbreaking event, it spurred vital reforms and raised awareness of the critical role of safety in space exploration. The legacy of those lost lives on, serving as a powerful reminder of the ongoing need for stringent safety practices and dedication to improvement in space travel.